Robert Axelrod was more than just Lord Zedd. He's done many roles, lots of different series. Two of my favorite non-PR roles of his was Armadillomon and Wizardmon from Digimon's dub. He was a great character actor. His acting style pulls you in. He loves speaking softly, then could just switch on a dime to rage and hatred. That's why a lot of people love Zedd. Robert gave those subtle performances you need in important moments. Strong, but not intense. He's planning something bigger than what it seems. Then when he fails, goes all out and shows you why everyone fears him. The one thing I had wished, he stayed on as a regular, supplying voices each year. I always wanted all the voice actors to do that, especially during anniversary season. Thanks goes to Tommy Clulo for the suggestion. If you have an idea or topic you'd like me to cover, leave a comment below. I might use it in a future video. Thin Man. Thin Man? When did he play a character called Thin Man? I bet some of you don't even know this one. This was Axelrod's single on-screen role for PR. You think this be a cool episode, but it's a blink and you miss it moment. He's the guy who's in the crowd signing up for the gym when the Cyclobot protein shake and Time Force's episode Undercover Ranger. I only knew because he was in the end credits. If he had no speaking lines, he wouldn't have been listed. There's nothing really to the role, unfortunately. He never appears in any other part of the episode. It's possible that more material was shot with him in the gym scenes, but were cut or just not visible. The problem still stands. Why would you waste this chance having Axelrod on camera, only doing this one scene? This was his worst role. Lokar. He was just a one-note character. Don't get me wrong, when Lokar came in, you knew Rita was done with the Rangers. She wanted them dead, so she called for help from Lokar, and it wasn't just because MMPR censored Jew Ranger Satan. Both series had the same problem. This happened only because of one reason. He's a visual effect. Especially in the 90s when you decide your character is going to be a floating head, you're barely going to show the monster. Now, if they wanted to, Lokar should have had a normal monster form like Scorpina. This way, they could have had him used as one of the final villains. Think Olympus. I don't know why they went this route. Maybe it was because the villain cast was big, or they were worried that Bandora was going to be pushed to the side with having a monster like Satan have a humanoid form. So they made him the floating head and only appeared for 2 or 3 episodes. This unfortunately wasted Axelrod's talent. Yeah, he did the evil laughing and the growls, but it was just an extra work. They don't even credit him for Lokar. That's how small it was. I would have loved to see what they could have done with him today. CJ would have made this easier. We know he would have gotten more screen time when Master Head and Ghost Sager was used every other episode. Chunky Chicken. Chunky Chicken was better than Lokar. I hate to admit that. He was used in a fight and in a very bizarre episode thanks to Jew Ranger's episode being odd in its own right. A fun monster of the week. I always wondered why they didn't make this for Thanksgiving. It was only 2 months shy. What was also interesting, there was no US footage ever made for this episode, yet MMPR had the suit. That's where all the promo photos came from for the trading cards. It was even modified a year later to be Bulk and Skull's turkey monster. I always wondered how many monster suits did Japan send over to MMPR, but they never ended up doing much in season 1, with the exception to Pudgy Pig. I think Chunky Chicken could have had a good episode developed around the footage. It was a 2-parter in Jew Ranger. They had Axelrod voice the role. It always felt like a wasted episode. I guess with the early days, they really didn't get the hang of the series. They were more forced to stick to the footage, so it was cheaper to just cut out all the non-essential parts of the story. But it does beg the question. They came up with the rad bug, which could have been ignored since it was only used in these 2 episodes, yet they put more effort into the car than Maria or Chunky Chicken. Not to mention, how come Bandai never made that toy? You Tantrum. Now this guy was a bit of a weird issue on Lost Galaxy. Mutantrum was the monster that disguised himself as Mike, to get Leo to break into that sealed off room where they thought the lights were hiding in. Axelrod did voice the role, but it seems that only partial bits of the dialogue were recorded with him. So the monster had 2 voices. Most likely Axelrod was intended to be the main voice, but was replaced last minute by Neil Kaplan. Then I guess they forgot to re-record all the voice lines that were in place. It honestly did work. After all, he could transform into Mike. I guess he could have different voices to confuse people. Maybe that's what he liked to do. It made for a more subtle add to an already good monster. One of the better episodes about the Lights of Orion. Grumble the Elf. Oh yeah, the weird storybook episodes where he voiced Grumble the Elf. You have the Tickle Sneezer suit, which can't be used anymore. Why not convert it into an elf and do a Christmas story? This is what I mean with Axelrod having range. The guy who plays Lord Zedd plays this goofy elf that runs around in the book. You can't get any more bizarre. This is where they should have shot an original Zord fight in Grumble the Elf. It would have been cool to see a good and bad side of the character where Axelrod could have played off the roles, kind of like Golem in Lord of the Rings, instead of using that random Shaddam footage. But I honestly like Grumble. I think it was because the episode was so wacky, he was the only traditional PR monster in it.
Two-Headed Parrot.
I noticed that MMPR really loves dual characters or characters that had detachable parts. With Two-Headed Parrot, this was the first time that PR loosely dealt with a monster that's not really evil. The only reason why they were doing this, they just wanted to help Rita, but don't actually want to be evil for evil's sake. That could have been an interesting place to explore. To Jason's credit, he did attempt to give Parrot a chance to surrender, but was that Jason really being altruistic, or was he paying back a favor? He did forget about teamwork, and the monster reminded him. That brings up a question. What does Zordon do if a monster defects or surrenders? Does he have a plan in place? Does the command center have jail cells? Yeah, the show never dealt with that problem. That could have been an interesting one, even a mid-season two-parter. Two-Headed Parrot made me really want Axelrod's characters to banter between themselves. You know, somehow Zedd and Finster almost never interacted with each other. I'm like, how do you not do that?
Goofish.
My favorite monster from the early days. Very few monsters of Rita are intelligent, where they manipulate the Rangers into doing something foolish. You got a really good monster, and it's a Billy episode. He always gets the tough ones. Goofish goes after Billy, who's afraid of fish, causing a huge problem. You're losing the planner, the logic, the brain, while Goofish uses his sticky poison to trap the Rangers and even the Megazord fight. He's able to deal with the Rangers' main weapons. The only time he was afraid was when the rest of the team came to help, but he used his brain and retreated. Why can't other monsters be like this? Goofish was basically on the same level as Goldar. In a sense, Goofish was the template that spawned Lord Zedd. He's pretty much Zedd to a T, and they do kind of acknowledge that when Zedd decided to resurrect Goofish for a second time. You can't deny that he came real close at offing the Rangers.
Lord Zedd.
The main man himself. What can I really say that hasn't been said a million times? When I first saw him, I was amazed at the suit. I mean, having someone that has no skin, that's creepy. His staff is from a living snake. He has who knows what's pumping in those tubes. He could be genetically altered for all as we know. Zedd's style of plans are very different from Rita's. He's more methodical, manipulative. Zedd will plan for months before executing. That's probably why he took a while to replace Rita. That's another reason why I loved him. He got rid of her, threw her back to the dumpster, which forced her to get a little bit better in her own right. If it weren't for him being dumbed down, or at least Rita and Zedd leaving at the end of season 2 so they wouldn't become laughingstocks for season 3 and Zio, I would have put him as number 1. It hurt me when these two characters acted like buffoons in Zio. It was a sad end to two good characters.
Finster.
Yeah, Finster is my favorite of Axelrod's roles, simply because he wasn't dumbed down like Zedd, spared only because of being forgotten. Finster stayed basically the same, helping out whatever master that was in charge, and did anything for them to gain power. Finster is loyal to a fault, but that makes him very dangerous. His intelligence is easily equal to Zedd and Rita, probably even Zordon. He can read them before they even order him to make monsters. He can also do additional things than just monsters. Finster honestly should have replaced Goldar as their tactician. Goldar, of course, is the fighter, but when it comes to brains, Finster's the best choice. I didn't see Finster lose his memory and turn into a pet for humans. Plus, if you're a comic fan, they've used him in very interesting ways. Not to spoil much, but think of all the things that Frax did throughout Time Force, but going a little bit further than that. Robert Axelrod will always be important to the franchise. He showed how far the series could go. Without Lord Zedd, there'd be no Mesogog, all the characters that we love from Ecliptor, Diabolical, to Scrozzle wouldn't have been possible without his work. That big opening to the PR universe when he first stepped into the palace, or the time when he entered the command center. I will always remember those moments. I know everyone else would put Zedd as number 1, but I always had this fondness to Finster. I believe if he was given a chance, he could lead an entire season. But what do you think? Who are your favorite characters? I'd like to know. New episodes Monday. Next week, the 10 most creative monsters ever done on Power Rangers. If you like my content, consider leaving a like and subscribing. Due to fair use abuses from the various companies, I no longer feature footage from the various episodes. Thank you for understanding. See you in the next video.